A lot of people lose hope. They lose faith, especially with homes, because if somebody's been in a home for a long period of time, sometimes they're like, they don't know what to do and they have no idea where to start. So like, if you get somebody coming in there and questioning themselves, like, well, we could do this or we could do that, instead of like a laser sharp, like, I can see it. I can future pace. I can see what the home is going to look like finished, and they can't. And when I tell them, they're like, I've lived here for 20 years and I've never thought about that. Like one little thing, and they're like, oh my gosh, like nobody's ever said that to me. If we made this one little change, it would change everything. And then they get this smile on their face, and then I'm smiling, and they're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Now, how are we gonna do it? And I'm like, I have the answers lined up for them. And I'm not blowing smoke out their ears. I am telling them. It's almost like clockwork. We all know how to get up and brush our teeth and go to the bathroom and eat our breakfast, get in the car and drive to work. That's exactly how I feel when I am dealing with my clients in their houses. That's what brings more people.
You are listening to the #1 real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, and stories help you win in your local market today. My name's Cody from Sheridan Street. Enjoy the Vikram Deol of Sheridan Street. Really weird saying that now. You know, it's officially official. It is a weird saying that, but it's also been it's been a while since we've done a podcast, man. What's good in your world? You know, we've done a bunch of solo episodes, but like we haven't recorded. We haven't had a conversation on camera, I think, in probably 3 months.
What do you mean? We have conversations every day on camera.
Yeah.
But
sort of
this type of conversation.
Yeah.
I know. Nothing. One thing is I'm still an asshole to you. That's
that never changes. That's good.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day we'll see. Personal growth. Yeah, man. Like things are good. This week was funny. I was in a little bit of a funk.
Yeah.
And I think we might tap into this a little bit, because when you charge hard every day, all day, and we had a lot of different things going on, like just like everybody does. I was like in a funk, and I was working with my coach, and you guys, if you don't practice what you preach, you're a fake. So I was working with our sales coach, and our team was on, and I did a role play, and I like literally ripped Will's face off of his face.
Yeah.
He's like, damn, bro, everything okay with you? And I'm like, I think I'm tired. He's like, you think? And I'm like, do you think maybe you're an asshole right now and you're not listening to people and you're just trying to like rip them apart? And I'm like, it's possible. He's like, I think you need to take a day off. Mm-hmm. And even when we had our coaching session with him, and so I canceled like half a day of appointments over the last couple of days. Yesterday I ate freaking sushi, watched a movie. And I feel like what we don't do and what we don't allow ourselves to do, especially when we're grinding or we're growing or we feel like we need to be somewhere where we're not. I feel like sometimes what we do is we push ourselves so hard that we don't allow ourselves to connect with the people that we actually are trying to serve so much. Mm. And it actually takes us away, and doing more of that just gets you a worse result, which then it's like, I call it the blue swirl of the toilet bowl that just never stops. And you just keep grinding and grinding, but you never get anywhere. So I flushed that shit down the toilet, took some time off, had some sushi, feel so much better. And I'm excited that we have a actual live podcast in the first time in like 90 days. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. And yeah, man, like things are good. Like, you know, I have really no complaints. Like I say, you've heard me say once or twice, living the dream, man, living the dream. But, you know, like to, you know, advance on what you're saying, like, and then we'll intro our guests. I think that what happens a lot is we can try to work ourselves into success. And, you know, what I found is when we try to work, like, and this is just what I've learned along the years, when we try to work ourselves into success versus like attracting success, I think there's two different things. I think that they, you know, again, that connection to God, that connection to source, that connection to like just life and being, I think is like creates the abundance that we need in order to kind of like radiate and permeate like who we want to be. It eventually attracts back, and we end up getting results when we're more centered, we're more grounded. You know, we don't have that commission breath. We just live the way that we are meant to live, and we're the person that we are meant to be. And I think that that's an important remembrance, especially around the holidays when, you know, people are taking time off, and it's okay to take time off. I think that there's a lot of people talk about It's like you need to
For
grind, 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 grind,
2025.
grind. Yeah, this is an opportunity for reflection. This time of year is an opportunity for us to look at the things we did really well, the things we could have done better, and kind of create a strategic plan and actually get ourselves the accountability that we need in order to drive the success we want to drive. So, without further ado, let's intro our guest, Rebecca. Why don't you give us kind of like high level overview of kind of like who you are and kind of like why guests should listen to you today more than anything. But then what we'll do is we'll get into kind of the things that agents can actually do in today's market in order to kind of drive success in 2025. So without further ado, Rebecca, take it away.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me. First of all, I am Rebecca Sekulich. I've been in real estate for the past 20 years. Haphazardly, I got into real estate. I'm born and raised in Michigan and have a fancy degree in cartography and geography and have a filmmaking career on the side. And I stumbled into real estate by working in commercial construction for about 10 years. And I was able to help people save money, like independent owners and operators of real estate businesses, build companies and save them a lot of money. And I transferred that into residential real estate. And so now I come from this place of working with my heart and of service and connecting with people and really helping them to see a vision that they cannot see and bring something to the table on a micro budget and help them make hundreds of thousands of dollars more than they would if they were just to sell their house or perhaps even buy their house and not know what to do with it.
The first thing that I would love to tackle, and Vic, I'll give you an opportunity to speak. Don't you worry. Sometimes you don't give me an opportunity to speak, so I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I was going down that path already.
Yeah,
but
don't
fine.
you worry.
Take it away, Cody.
I'm getting very good at verbal pauses and verbal cues. So like you gotta work on some training.
Okay. So Rebecca, let me just jump in.
Yeah. So Rebecca, one of the things that we were jamming this week with our sales team. And we were chatting about energy. And I think that energy becomes an extremely important, it's everything for, especially a real estate salesperson. It's everything for an entrepreneur. I believe it's everything for a human being that wants to make a really good amount of money and just have a really successful career in sales. So what are some of your thoughts around bringing energy in sales situations, bringing energy in helping families, like you said, you popped into the room right away. We haven't actually officially met on camera before, but you brought the energy even in that initial interaction. So how important is it for, a salesperson, for a real estate agent to have good energy as they walk into a living room, as they make a phone call? What are some of your thoughts around energy and how to kind of cultivate energy in a market that might be down or a market that might be up?
The word that comes to my mind is it's quintessential. The way that you show up, the way that you walk in a room is everything. I have a really great example. I was selling a house in Santa Monica, right on the beach, really nice area, not super expensive. It was a condo in a high rise. And the owner had met with 5 other agents. I was the 6th agent to walk in that door. And they all had said the same thing. The house is worth, I'm just going to give round numbers, $1 million. And I walked in there and I gave my little spiel and I told that person what I could do for them. Fast forward, I got the listing. I did everything I said I was going to do. And we came back and I asked that owner, I said, I need to know now. I don't know who were the other 5 agents you met with, but why did you choose me? And he said something that it's stayed with me, for the last couple of months is you walked in that room like you knew exactly what you're doing. And instead of me asking you questions, you told me what I needed to do to net the most amount of money. You told me the truth. You told me my place didn't look great, didn't show well. And you gave me something in confidence that if I let you handle this with ease and grace, like you said, that what you said was going to ring true. And exactly what you said happened and even better. And I netted this guy. We ended up closing that $1 million house for $1,630,000. And I spent just roughly, I don't know, it was less than 50 grand, including staging. And I completely remodeled this whole place in 21 days and sold it on the very first open house. And this just happened less than 2 months ago. So very relevant for today's market. And some of the other agents, he said, were, can I just say it? Can I swear? They were pissed. They were pissed that I got the listing. They knew him. They had rapport. But I just went in there, like a powerhouse, knew exactly what I needed to do. I mean, I had the numbers down, brought my whole team of my crew with me, got back to him quickly because time is of the essence. And I got
Mhm.
in there and handled this
Time
remodel in
kills deals.
21 days.
Yeah.
And I paid for it. My company paid for it. So he didn't have to bring anything to the table. And the thing that really made a difference for me, he walked in the door, the very first open house. He brought his 2 kids with him. He sat on the couch, my staging, looked out the window at the ocean, and he said, "What if I don't want to sell?" And to me, that was like the biggest compliment ever. And what? So what? If you don't want to sell, great. Got to pay the money back, and you got to
You gotta
pay
pay me
me
the
for doing my work. But if you don't want to sell, and I said, but what would you rather do? Would you rather net a couple $100,000 more or keep your place? And he chose the money over keeping it. I mean, was he serious? I don't know. Yes, he loved it because he goes, I always wanted to do this, but I couldn't see it. I didn't have the vision. And you took my place, which I thought was awesome, and you made it like magazine worthy.
So good. It's super cool. Like energy, like walking down the street last week, I was in a funk, right? And we live in, both Cody and I live in South America right now. And I grew up in a city called Bakersfield, right up the street from where you're at,
Yep.
but it's not super swanky. It's not, 40 years ago, it wasn't a big city. It was very country, very like farmer, oil, like agriculture. And there's something that was really cool when you learn how to use energy effectively. When Cody always laughs, he's like, you can make a friend anywhere, Beck.
Yeah.
And Cody's like, I couldn't be bothered like meeting new people. He's like, but you can just go into a room and like everybody wants to be around you. And it's not that they don't want to be around Cody. It's just Cody doesn't, that's not his vibe. He's like, I can be in the corner behind the DJ booth, behind a screen and like support you, Vic. And I'm super happy. He's like, getting on stage drains me. Getting on stage, you're like pumped up. And last week, I went into my coffee shop and there's a girl there with some special needs. I don't know what it is. And she looked at me and she goes, "You're tired."
Oh.
She goes, you're tired. You need to go home and take a nap. And I'm like, and it's, you don't realize it and you don't think, and I'm like, no, I'm just like, I'll grind through it. But people pick up because we're animals. I don't give a shit what the fucking social media shit says of the week, what the flavor.
Yeah.
We are animals and we have intuition. As we get older, our intuition disappears because we train ourselves out of it by going to schools and boxes, living in boxes. Everything we do is a box. You got to check the boxes, right? Sales is a check the box thing. No, it's not. You don't want to go into somebody's house if they're selling because mom died and dad died and they're depressed and you're like, hey, oh my God, we're going to get that's not using your energy effectively. That's very ineffective use of communication skills. But when you start to utilize your energy and you start showing up a certain way, when you don't show up like that, people are like, yo, your vibe is off.
Mhm.
You're like, what do you mean? And everybody notices it except for sometimes you. And so like, I would be curious to hear both of you guys, because I know, Cody, you've been doing a lot of work with, you've been doing a lot of inner work this last, I don't know, maybe 6 to 7, 8, 9 months. And Rebecca, you've been in real estate for 20 years. So if you haven't done a lot of inner work, you're just really good at drinking alcohol. I don't know which one. Like I live in California. I smoke some weed, I drink some alcohol, and I put my feet in the sand and I'm happy, right? Like, what is it that you guys do, right? And we'll get into kind of like some of the things you're doing outside of the box to generate revenue, Rebecca, and to differentiate yourself, because I think it's pretty cool. But from a mindset perspective, because real estate's effing hard. So what do you do? Because you've been in this for many different seasons, good, bad, ups, downs. What do you do to keep that? Because like even if you guys aren't watching on YouTube, like she's just got this vibe of like, oh, I want to come hang out with this chick. Like she's just fucking cool. Like the big green emerald on your left finger, I think. Is it an emerald or what is it?
It's a peridot actually, and 80
Okay.
diamonds.
It's pretty sweet. So like, what do you do to, other than, have a cup of wine, what do you do to like keep yourself high vibe tribe?
What I love the most is I feel like energy is contagious. So when I step
Mhm.
into a room or I meet with somebody, a buyer, a seller, friends, if I am up here, they come up to my level. They're like mirroring and matching me. If I'm meeting with Eeyore, like, somebody who's like, wah, wah, I'm questioning. Questions are the answers. I'm asking like, what's going on? But I bring this hope in this little slice of faith to every person that I'm with, that no matter what the problem is, like literally, I feel like my business card should say I'm a professional problem solver, not a real estate agent, not a designer, remodeler, but a professional problem solver. Because literally, guys, there's no problem that we
Yeah.
cannot fix except for death. Like
Yeah.
everyone can fix taxes and houses and we can fix anything except for when somebody dies. And so that I feel like a lot of people lose hope. They lose faith, especially with homes, because if somebody's been in a home for a long period of time, sometimes
Yeah.
they're like, they don't know what to do and they have no idea where to start. So like, if you get somebody coming in there and questioning themselves, like, well, we could do this or we could do that. Instead of like a laser sharp, I can literally come into a house and deduce very quickly. Like I can see it. I can future pace. I can see what the home is
Right.
going to look like finished, and they can't. And when I tell them, they're like, I've lived here for 20 years and I've never thought about that. Like one little thing, and they're like, oh my gosh, like nobody's ever said that to me. If we made this one little change, it would change everything. And then they get this smile on their face, and then I'm smiling, and they're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Now, how are we going to do it? And I'm like, I have the answers lined up for them. And I'm not blowing smoke out their ears. I am telling them, I've done this so many times. I just finished my 80th remodel, and I'm about to do my number 81 here. It's almost like clockwork. We all know how to get up and brush our teeth and go to the bathroom and eat our breakfast, get in the car and drive to work. That's exactly how I feel when I'm dealing with my clients in their houses. I already know what to do. It's as easy as pushing the start button and pushing the gas pedal. Here we go. And I literally lay it out for them so the answers are in front of them and they don't have to do anything. They can sit back and literally be like, I am being held, I'm being taken care of. And that is contagious. And then that's what brings more people. And that's how I get my business. I do not have to advertise. I do not have to cold call or knock on a door. My coach would kill me for literally in saying that, but it's true. Because if I do a great job, it's that owner or person who's going to say, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I saw your house 6 months ago. And, wow, I cannot believe the transformation. Or the people who walk in the open house after I'm done doing a remodel and they say, who
How'd
did
you
this?
do this?
Who was the
I did.
designer? Who was the architect? Who did you
Creative
get the
solutions.
cabinets from? And they all point back to me and say, my agent, or I say, I did it. And they're like, wait a second. Most agents aren't doing that. It's like, that's what I feel like sets me apart. And I don't have to question that. It's just it just falls into line. And I can tell somebody right away, if they want a bathroom done, I can say, this is going to cost, $7,000 and here's why.
It's confidence.
Yeah.
It's confidence, right? When you have confidence because you understand your market, your product, your service, right? That confidence rubs off on other people. And one of the biggest challenges that agents have in today's market, and I talk to a ton of them that are doing well and a ton of them that are not doing well, every time it comes down to is confidence. Cody, you've been working with some cool people over the last few months. What are you doing? Because I've noticed a considerable shift in you. You're more calm, you're more grounded, you're more chill, you're working more effectively. What are you doing, what have been the behind the scenes work you've been doing?
So it's funny. I've been working with Sharon's, mindset coach for probably the last 7 months, 6-7 months. Jen Cudmore. She's awesome. I love her. I literally had a session with her last night, and I'm looking at I knew you were going to ask this question. So I'm literally looking at, I don't think I've ever shared this publicly. When I was 7 years old, 8 years old, we were jamming, and this all tie back in to kind of your answer your question. We were jamming last night, and she brought up this, and I go deep when I go with her. Like she's like, we have tons of coaches, sales coaches, mindset coaches. She does kinesiology, healers. Like we do a whole bunch of different things. But she reminded me of a moment that I had when I was 8 years old, where I come from a very Christian background, growing up that way. And she reminded me of a moment where we were at a church and this guy called me out as an 8-year-old kid out of the church, and he blew a shofar horn. And like, I just remember having an experience with God, and, like, and I'm like trying to digest that moment of what that actually meant to me. And like, again, like, things change over years, and you kind of like, you walk different paths and different journeys. And I think that's really important. I think that people should walk their path and walk their journey. But it all comes back to this thing that kind of like this, like, I want my heart to radiate gratitude. I want my heart to, to be able to help other people. And I think that, when you do the inner work and you work on yourself and you get alone, and like, something that's been coming up a lot for me in therapy and in conversations with my coach is, stillness. And I think that it's something that we don't always understand and we don't always do. And it's something I don't always do, but it's in those still moments that allow us to kind of ground ourselves. And I think that like, we're in a world where there's so much noise that if we just stop for a second and we're just still, and we think about the breath we have in our lungs, we think about the opportunities we've been given, we think about how far we've actually come, we think about, even like some of the trials and tribulations we've been through. I think that it's in those moments of stillness allow us to reflect. And we talked about that at the top of the hour around like just this understanding that it's okay to stop and it's okay to be still. And this is actually a really great time in order to do that, is to be still, to be able to strategize. And I think that I finally grappled with the still moments. And, it's like the work I've done in private has now radiated into the public, where people are like, one of the things we were chatting with one of our clients is like, one of our clients, Daniel, we were sitting at dinner. He's like, maturity looks sexy on you. And I think that is a lot of the inner work that a lot of us don't do. Again, we joke about like the moments of like, alcohol. I cut out alcohol cold turkey this year. I've literally had no alcohol in my life at all. And I'm very proud of that. And I think that it's the choices that we make that dictate who we're going to be. And I think that it dictates how we show up in moments. So whether you're a coach, whether you're a real estate agent, no matter what you're doing, how you show up for your clients oftentimes happens. Like the reason why Rebecca is able to show up the way she's able to show up is because she's done the work. She's done the deep work. It's like, sure, we can have all these creative solutions.
Ate a weed brownie.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's like you as well. The reason why you're able to show up for the real estate agents we serve inside of Triz is because you've done the inner work. You've done the healing. You've gotten alone. You've sat in the stillness. And I think that not enough people in this industry are talking about the stillness, or talking about the moments that actually allow us to become the best versions of ourselves for our clients, for the people around us, for our families. And I think that, like, that's the answer to my question. So still the answer to your question is the stillness. It's the still moments. So that's what I would say.
It's so funny you say that, because all I wanted yesterday was to shut the fuck up in the world. And like, if you ask me, I watched this movie called Unbroken, actually. And like, it's a movie about, World War II, must have been World War II. And it's about a guy who got captured, their plane crashed at sea, 50 days at sea. And he got captured, and he, was tortured. And it's actually a movie I've seen a couple of times that you forget about him. It's like Man's Search for Meaning, like Viktor Frankl when he was captured. Right. And as I'm sitting there watching it, I'm like, man, what kind of chatter was going on in that dude? Like, these men's head, like, what kind of chatter goes on as a prisoner? And I've been to jail. Like, I've spent many a night in jail. It's not fun. And it's that inner chatter, right? That we have with ourselves, about ourselves, that's so crucial. And it's the thing that people don't talk, like everybody, you go onto every real estate thing, and it's funny because this conversation 6 months ago, Cody went like, all right, tell me your tactics, Rebecca, like blah, 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 right? Totally different. And now it's just like, from that grounded place, it's like, what do our people need from the conversations that we're having every day? It's that intuition coming out. And it's like, yeah, the tactics are cool, but if you don't feel like picking up a phone, if you don't feel like sitting down with the person, like I didn't feel like sitting down with people. I canceled 4 appointments this week. I never cancel appointments. And you're sitting there watching this movie. Like I'm sitting there watching this movie and it's just like, that's amazing that this guy's inner chatter was so strong that as he's getting beaten and scared and like, you're going to die. And like, he's supporting other people. Like that's fucking badass. Right. And like at the end of the movie, he was able to go back and live out his dream and he found God and he met with all the people that used to torture him. And it's just like, that's some badass shit, you know? And like, we all have problems. We all have money issues. It doesn't matter if you're filthy rich or flat out broke. There's still always something in your head. Am I going to lose all my money? How do I make money? Is this slump going to ever go away? What if tomorrow the tax laws change and they take all my money? Everybody's got problems. We don't realize it. And like, when you can come with like empathy in the sales situation and you can come with like solutions and confidence, but you have empathy at the same time about like actually caring about what these people are going through, it's such a shift in your conversation. So I'm super proud of you, Cody. Just who you're becoming. Rebecca, can we change gears here a little bit? Because I think Rebecca's also doing some really cool shit that could help agents. You got into a super interesting niche prior to it becoming like this home renovation. Now there's companies out there. I don't know the names of them. They don't sponsor them. So we're not going to say them, but, hey, I don't even know what the names are. I can't think of them. I know, yeah, I know, but they don't give us any money. So screw them. But there's all these companies out there that are now paying for home renovations, get paid at close, get paid at, right. You know, pay back the company from the buyer, the seller at close of escrow. And it's super cool. But the problem is agents don't know how to guide the spend of the money. Like agents don't know what's going to actually make the property more valuable. So it's like, hey, I have this solution, but then for the seller, it's work because somebody has to come up with the plan. And agents are like, well, we could do maybe this or that, right? Exactly what you said earlier, because they don't know what's going to generate that. You know, you're in a higher price point, but let's call it 20 to 30% more revenue for the, you know, let's call it 8 to 12% of spend. Home sellers like, well, it's not worth the reward because to them it's a risk because the agents don't have that knowledge. Yeah. So you came in with a lot of knowledge into this industry and you keep honing it, but like, how did you come up with that thought process a decade ago plus where you're like, hey, if I could actually help these people fund the remodel and if I could actually guide them and plan it and do all the crap that's necessary to do a remodel and get them 20% and then have the conversation around, oh, by the way, you're going to be in a construction site for the next X amount of days, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Like, how did you come up with that? And then how do you pivot that to actually make it make sense?
Yep. Great question. So I'll go back to my very first remodel that I did. So a friend of mine who's an agent called me and said, hey, I have this listing and, you know, like, would you let me know what you thought? And now she just knew that I did some commercial stuff. So she just pulled me in, not as the other agent, but like for a consult. So I ran down to this house, not in a very nice area of Los Angeles. And a little old woman owned it. And, you know, I could tell she didn't have a lot of money, but this was like her pride and joy. And it was in a PUD. Now, we don't sell a lot of PUDs. Do you guys sell PUDs where you are or where you were, planned urban developments? No. It's basically like a giant house, a condo inside of a planned community where you have an association fee. And like there was a golf course behind it. But again, not worth a lot of money. So I go in there and I'm like, you know, this looks like grandma's house in my mind. I didn't say that to her. I didn't want to insult her. I said, but in my mind, I was like, hey, do you have
grandma's house,
any money that we could do anything with? And she looked at me at about 75 years old and she goes, sweetheart, she's like, I don't have anything. I need to sell this house so I can go buy a house in a different state that's not going to cost as much. So that's where the light bulb went off. And I honestly started thinking about it. Like, and I said to the agent, like a friend of mine, I'm like, look, if we could just spend a little bit of money, like if I could figure this out. And I go, do you have any money? And she goes, no. And she looked at me and she goes, do you have any money? And I said, well, I don't really have any cash, but you know what I do have? I have a whole bunch of credit cards, Home Depot and Lowe's and all this stuff. And I had, coming from the film industry, honestly, I'd made a whole bunch of movies using credit cards. You charge a bunch of stuff up and then you pay it off and then you
Yeah.
return things and you borrow things from
Entrepreneur
IKEA.
life.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Home Depot, and you do a lot of like, I don't want to say returning, but you buy stuff on the cheap and just figure it out. So long story short, I went in there on this, $150,000, $200,000 listing in South LA. And I spent $12,000 at Home Depot and Lowe's and anywhere I could put. I bought all the materials and I called a friend of mine who was like a handyman. And I was like, look, how much do I have to pay you? And I bartered with this guy. If I buy the materials at Home Depot, could I buy
Mhm.
you more materials or some tools that you need for payment? And would you do this job for me? So we bartered. So I actually
Yeah.
put the whole entire thing on credit cards, and I bought him a saw and some things that he needed, like a tile cutter, things that he didn't have to help him
Right.
in his business. And so I didn't end up
You got
spending
creative.
any money on labor. I spent
Yeah.
$12,000 on
Wow.
tools and materials. And this house would have been worth about $150,000. I spent 12 grand, cleaned it all up, basically painted, new fixtures, new lights, did some landscaping, did a mass cleaning, got it really uniform. I actually threw some new floors in for 12 grand. And this was a long time ago. I can't do that right now. But we get done. And again, long story short, the seller would have netted, when all was said and done, about $55,000 on the original sale. I spent 12 grand, and her net proceeds after all was said and done was $225,000. And the look on her face when we were done. So I have 50 grand over here and 220 over here after
200.
Rebecca's done. She was able to take that money and buy her next house in Phoenix, Arizona, cash. So they didn't have to have a mortgage at 75 when all of her little buddies were taking out reverse mortgages and screwing themselves. She was able to have that freedom. And I remember, I'm really tall. I'm like 5'11", and she was like 5'1". And she grabbed my shoulders and she pulled me in, tears coming down her face. And I could get a little choked up. I call it misty thinking about it, because she said to me, you changed my life for the better. And I'm so grateful for you doing this. And I also, I shouldn't say like this, but she didn't know me. She didn't love me. She didn't trust me yet. But she had the confidence that her friend that she hired as the listing agent, that was just like her, an older woman, just a normal person. They brought me in. She trusted this youngster with blonde hair, and I don't know. It was a trust thing. So it happened. We hugged it out. I sold the property. I became the listing agent with the other agent. She pulled me into the deal and we made her a whole bunch of money. And that feeling, I take that every single time and I pull that into every deal. I want everybody to feel like that. I want everybody to have that hope and that faith that if we just do something like this, that something
You know what
come out of it.
the thing that agents don't understand is that if you do what everybody else does, you might, like Tony Robbins taught me something. I was a platinum partner a few years ago, and he says, if you do what everybody does, you hope to get average results. If you want to have an extraordinary life, you have to be extraordinary yourself. Rebecca, we are running up on time. You are an amazing storyteller, and I could see we could go how you go for an hour and a half on some podcasts. Where can people find you in this world?
Best place to find me right now is Instagram. And my handle is at House of, like Gucci, but my last name, it's Sekulich, Sekulich, House of Sekulich. I did that. I was hacked and my name was taken away from me from a video going viral about a year and a half ago. So I had to start all over again. So that's where it's at. And I could change it back now. But you know what? People love it. I have a good following right now and super appreciative. So
rock it.
Love to help in any way.
Rebecca, we appreciate you. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for sharing so freely with us today. And I want to thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.